We're good? Okay, cool. All right. Hail cheaters. Welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. It's our Academy Awards counter program. It feels like it started earlier this year. Does the Academy Awards usually start at 7 p.m.? That feels very early to me.
I wonder if it had something to do with the clocks rolling forward here in Eastern
Yeah.
Standard Time
Yeah.
do with it. But yeah, we'll do our best. We're of course live on YouTube right now. If you're listening on the podcast feed, boy, you missed it. Josh, you gave away best FPL troll for this year goes to who would it
Yeah.
be? I mean,
Yeah.
is Holland creeping into troll territory? That seems really extreme.
No,
Say
not
that's
at
that's a
all.
very hot take.
I mean, he's probably is he one of the top 5 point scorers still this season? I mean, even with the
It's not good enough.
injury
He
and
set
things like that.
he set the precedent last season, Josh.
Well,
I'm
and
not having it.
he is 14 million. So we actually had a question from Glenn, and I guess I'll pull it up here. Brand, he said, considering you're going head to head with the Oscars tonight, give us your Cheaters Award for best actor, player, director, manager, and picture of the season to date. So the best player in this Premier League season,
Philadelphia Foden, as I will now call him, after the great Oscar-winning movie Philadelphia, starring Denzel Washington and Tom Hanks. Big. I think Philadelphia Foden gets best actor, best director, maybe Jurgen Klopp.
So yeah, I think Klopp's going to take that one. If nothing else, it's like the sentimental. It's like
Lifetime
Scorsese
Achievement
won
Award.
For The Departed. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, maybe not his best season, but we'll see. Maybe it will be.
If Ollie Watkins can drag Villa to a Champions League spot, I mean, granted they're a good team throughout, but sure. I think if they get there on the back of him having like a 20 goal, 20 assist season, I think he's got a decent and Saka, I think as well. They would certainly be in the
supporting
5 nominees. Actor. Yeah, they would be. No, I just mean that if you had the 5 nominees for best actor, I think those 3 are making it in. Maybe Haaland and Salah, you could add those guys in as well. So
yeah,
that's a good 5. I think we should just stick with that.
Here's the thing, Peter Drury, he's always going for the best screenplay award. But here's the thing, he's a terrible writer. So he'll never win.
I love, by the way,
I make it's like part of my thing to like bag on Peter Drury. He can
it's part of the fun opinions. Yeah, well, he's it's like who's the Scottish guy who does the Champions League stuff? The is it Ra? It starts with an R. Ray Hudson. Ray Hudson.
Ray
Hudson.
He's the Barcelona guy who's always like he's like a clown's pocket. Messi is.
I personally despise listening to him talk. Some people think he's great, and he's not for me. That's fine, right? It's I think what I have come to really love about the Premier League, the sort of the best Premier League managers, is how much they're unlike NFL commenters, right? Or commentators in the NFL. They never stop talking, right? There is a constant flow of chatter just relentlessly throughout the entire match. And many of the Premier League announcers they just give you the player's last name, right? It's like just one to another pass. And that's, to me, I like that. It's sort of, it's quiet. I'm able to focus on the match, and I don't have like some ex-player telling some like long, like elaborate. I mean, baseball, it kind of works, right? Because baseball there is a less kinetic sport, right? It's sort of the stories.
You can tell a story, spin a yarn during baseball commentary.
Exactly.
Or like when Andre Agassi did tennis commentary for a brief period, he would give real insights. The way John McEnroe is more like, I just want to be a broadcaster. Here's sort of a pivot for you, Josh.
Okay.
So when a director has a hit feature film, they make a lot of money. What they get in return is what people would refer to as a blank check. Now, go out and make your passion project, and we don't care if it makes any money. This episode of Always Cheating is all about that FPL blank check, which we call the free hit chip.
That's true. Now,
so have you given much thought to your blank check? Are we? I'm playing mine. I assume you are as well.
I've already activated it, and I've been. I have a mock-up that I will discuss shortly on the pod, and so I feel. I think the way that we're going to approach this pod, right, is like I think what I want to do is focus more on the particular teams, the 8 teams that play in Game Week 29. And talk about assets on those teams, because I feel like if we sit here and we just kind of plan out like an optimal free hit team. I just feel like you can find that elsewhere, and maybe especially because we tend to come out a little earlier in the week, right, than some of the other FPL pods that are out there, or YouTube shows, whatever. It's a chance for us to maybe set the table a little bit, right? So we can go through the different squads, talk about players in them, and then I think the problem some people have, and I think what can fuel some frustration sometimes, like how do I catch up? How do I make up ground? Is you sort of look at like one of these websites that just spits out like this is the team you should have, right? Or maybe there's like a little tiny bit of variation between a couple of them. So, but I think if you start from like kind of principle of like, oh, maybe I do actually want. Maybe there is something there on Fulham that I'm just kind of completely ignoring, right? For example, you might be able to build a free hit team that it probably won't be radically dissimilar for most free hit teams, right? There's only 8 squads who play this week. Certain teams like Burnley you're not probably going to have more than one player, if any. And so I think that, but at least you can feel like you made it yourself, right? Like it's like you authentically built it from scratch. And so that's what I hope to accomplish in this pod as we talk about these, all the teams that play. And I also just think it's a more fun way to talk about the game week. So, but we'll talk through that. I'll share my free hit team. We can discuss that a little bit as well. But I have to tell you, Brandon, I have to start things off with a story here because I did something that, how many times have you woke up, Brandon, on a Saturday morning, or maybe more likely it's usually like later in the day on Saturday, and you think, I wish I had just slept through the deadline and not made any transfers for this week. If I had just not changed my team at all, my team would have been in a better spot than it is this week. Well, it happened to me, Brandon. I never thought it could happen to me, but it happened to me. I was out with producer Trevor on Friday evening. Went to Frankie's 457 in Brooklyn. Great restaurant.
Ooh, that's a romantic place. Oh, that's a great Italian dinner.
It was a great meal. We decided to walk to Sonny's Bar. Another great bar.
It's a long walk.
It's a full mile. Exactly. Now you wouldn't have done it.
More
we would
than
have had
a
to get
mile
like if I was with you, we would have been Uber. It's exactly a mile. It was 1 mile.
I would have been in my motorized scooter if we were doing that.
We even walked back. How about that? It was 2 full miles.
Okay.
Late in the evening. We worked up our drinks.
Give me the receipt. How much did you have to drink? What happened?
A fair amount, because we started at a bar before dinner too. So drink at there's a little mini bar. It's literally called Mini Bar across the street. So we were there.
Bar. Yeah.
Great bar. So we were there, and I'm gonna make you sad. This is like you're gonna
I'm
miss.
Very nostalgic for my Brooklyn days, man.
Exactly.
All the great
spots. I mean, I'm talking about some real favorites here, right? This is like it's almost unfair, right? But yeah, the hits exactly. So and I think that was like the goal was let's play the hits tonight. But anyway, so we went to the bar, had a couple drinks at dinner, at several at Sonny's, and then we had a final one, a tutty, as we call it in our friend group, an acronym which means totally unnecessary drink, TUD, and then tutty for short. So we had a tutty, and so it was quite a lot. I got home around 1:00, and I had just been kind of debating all day, all week really, which crappy Bournemouth defender did I want to bring into my squad, right? They're all bad. None of them are appealing. The one you might have wanted was injured. And so, Sinisi. And so, yeah. And so there was really, you're like, and I sort of had basically talked myself into Kirkaz. And then as the day had gone on, I was talking myself into a -4. And so I was going to drop Estupiñán and Callum Robinson, and I was going to bring in
Anthony Robinson.
Oh yeah, Anthony Robinson, of course.
I only correct you because he's American, and we must respect that.
That's true, and I just want to drop him to the bench. To be fair, I would have dropped him from the starting 11. But Estupiñán, I would have just straight up dropped. He would have been out of my squad, and I was going to bring in Zabarnyi, I think is how you say it, right? Zabarnyi and Kirkaz, right? So. Okay. But I woke up at 7 a.m. and I have to admit, I woke up at 7 a.m. and it was literally the first thought in my head, right? I crashed when I get home and I woke up and I went, oh my God, I didn't make the transfer. And I was like, there was, that moment when you like something bad has happened and you just spend a few minutes like trying to figure out if you can like literally reverse time,
all too well. Like, I know it all too well, Joshua.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, I don't know what to do here. And it was like, my heart was beating. I was like, this is like a double game week. That is not a week to screw up and not make your transfer. So I was like, oh my God, I've just like upended my season. This is like a total, I finally had some nice green arrows. It's a total catastrophe. Well, lo and behold, Brandon, at the very least, right? Even if they both get clean sheets on Wednesday, and I don't think Kirkaz even going to start, I am probably going to come out ahead because Kirkaz and Zabarni have combined for 1 total point so far, right? And I was going to bring them in for -4, and I have gotten from Anthony Robinson 1 point, so not much there. But 6, yeah, but 6 from a Stupinon, right? Gets the clean sheet, gets pulled off early with the clean sheet intact. Dream, right?
Beautiful.
Ideal. So I get 7 points from them. So I'm already at effectively a 10-point advantage, right? Because I would have been the -4 as well, right? So there's the 7 points plus the -4 is 11 points, right? And I would have had 1 point so far from the 2 players that I brought in. So I'm a net +10, literally because I forgot to make a transfer. So I don't know what the lesson is here.
Well,
I don't think I want to know what the lesson is.
Some would say luck is the residue of design, and I think this story is not.
I wish that were. No, there's no luck involved. No, I don't want to take incompetence. I'm not one of these people who, starts life on third base thinking he hit a triple, Brandon. It's sometimes you just need
Silver Spoon FPL here with Josh Landon.
That's what you mean, my new handle. So but whatever. I've had some bad luck this year, and I have had some good luck. I mean, we'll see what happens. Like maybe those guys will they'll keep 2 clean sheets and it'll be kind of a wash. But I think no matter what happens now, it's not going to be a huge disaster, right? And so that I definitely feel like I got super lucky because I don't know, I didn't have Sheffield United scoring 2 goals on my bingo card. What a wild match that was in general, right? I mean, a 2-2, you had a penalty that Solanke missed. You had Solanke scoring off offside goal because of a very tiny. I know it's like, I don't want to get into like a whole VAR thing, but like by the letter of the law, they had to disallow it. But it was even really bundled, right? It was a handball, exactly. I mean, I'm not saying like they shouldn't have disallowed it, but it was just like it was a bummer, right? Because it was like, okay, finally like a little redemption here.
Sure.
So just
proves that God doesn't exist, basically. That
exactly.
Situation.
That whole Saturday, I would say every match on Saturday was a God is dead kind of slate of fixtures.
It really
Brandon.
was. I went on the Always Cheating Patreon Discord, and it was just absolute carnage. It was like that meme where in Community where Donald Glover walks in holding a pizza and everything is on fire.
Yeah, exactly. We're the worst timeline. Yeah,
the Luton clean sheet wiped out. No returns for Carlton Morris or Doughty, who would be the favorites there. Total no-show from Barkley. Yeah, and you just ran down the list of Bournemouth situations.
Even Arsenal Brentford, nothing really happens there unless you had Ben White, right? Otherwise, it was blanks across the board. Even Gabriel got a yellow card. Wolves, Fulham, nothing there. Man United, Everton. I suppose you had a handful of Garnacho owners out there, but that was pretty much it. I mean, I don't know. I guess
there were Garnacho on the bench situation.
A lot of Garnacho on the bench.
I think people. Yeah. This is the pain of Manchester United this season. Is no one knows. We know they have good players, but we never know which version of them will show up in any given moment. And I think with the double too, it made it harder to start somebody like Garnacho.
Yeah, I think in general it was a tough week for benching because Foden was another player who could have, in theory, I mean, I don't know, in his current form, perhaps not, but like, certainly like there, anytime Liverpool and Man City play each other, it's just very unpredictable, right? Like you don't, it's just, it's sort of, it's going to be off the script a little bit. And that match ended up being kind of a bad match from an FPL, a great match to watch, bad match from an FPL perspective, right? There's sort of really no returns from any
Darwin
players of note. Yeah, I guess Darwin got an assist. Yeah, but ridiculous match from Darwin again.
Yeah, what an interesting match. I saw the Liverpool starting 11 and thought it's going to be a murder at Anfield because City just had one of their strongest lineups that they were putting out, and City just know how to manage a match, and they're very fit. And I thought Liverpool wouldn't have the legs. And then you flash forward to the 85th minute, and Luis Diaz is dancing around Bernardo Silva. Every single Liverpool player is pressing their hearts out, and they steamrolled City in that second half. If Luis Diaz had his shooting boots on, they would have won.
Well, what's wild about that is that is true, but also if Phil Foden, I don't know, maybe that one gets chalked off. I don't know, but like the Phil Foden crossbar,
when Kelleher punched the ball off of Foden's face.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not saying Foden missed a chance there, but it was just like it was
What's
that
the
would have been a
XG
wild
on that
goal.
chance, Josh?
Yeah, hard to say. I don't know how they like compute. How do you compute that one? Right?
Yeah,
You can't run 10,000 simulations of that style of
we can
goal.
try.
The Doku chance, however, is a classic
Mm.
Man City goal. Like that if they score that a lot of times,
Yeah.
and when they do that, you're sort of like, well, they just found a way, right? And that's the difference, really, and just like a couple of inches. And I mean, Diaz is sort of funny because it wasn't even like that close, like that when Salah plays him through it, right, like a minute after he's on the pitch and he's one on one. He didn't put in that great of an effort. Like it was kind of like when he was bearing down on who was Ortega? Is that the new?
Yeah,
Was that
Ortega.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, bearing down on Ortega. He misses pretty wide margin, I have to say. And then he gets
Yeah.
another chance like a minute after that. But it's a weird one for him because he was also so good,
Yeah.
right? It's like, but I guess like there's no reason to like that you've got to put people into a box, right? Like he was terrific in the match. And he's also probably the reason they didn't win the match. And so it's like it's it's like both things can be true, I think, right? It's like just like I don't
It's
know. It would have
harsh.
been ideal if he'd finished
Stern.
those.
It's stern, but
Yeah,
perhaps fair. I think
yeah.
that's. Yeah, and to not put it at any particular feat. If I'm a Liverpool fan, I guess I'm happy.
Well, they're still top of the table, right? I mean, or actually,
Arsenal
no,
are
they're tied
top
with
of the
Arsenal
table.
now.
Yeah.
Right, Arsenal ahead on goal difference.
I
That's
don't
right.
understand all these
Yeah.
Arsenal fans who are celebrating this draw. I mean,
No,
Arsenal are ahead
no,
on
you
goal
wanted Man
difference.
City.
Yeah,
You wanted Man City to lose.
can
Yeah.
you give me one example of Arsenal being in a situation better than this and choking the title? Just saying, just throwing that out there.
Yeah, but like literally last year,
The last
right? It's
15 years.
I did well just last year, but I mean, I think I know it really makes me. The thing is, like, you can't. On those three teams have all been so good, and what's wild is we're kind of. It's a very interesting stretch that we're going into the next couple of weeks because we have this. Well, I'll just kind of lay it out a little bit, right? Because we have Chelsea Newcastle's tomorrow. And then we have Bournemouth Luton Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm actually forgetting the day for that match. I think it's Wednesday. Wednesday at 3:30, Brandon, because of the daylight savings time hasn't come to Europe yet. So we are like yet this spring. Wait, I assume Canada is Canada in the same daylight savings
Yeah,
time as America? I hadn't
we
even thought
flipped
about
over
that.
with the
Okay.
US
Okay.
this morning. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So, but I love there's like always a couple of weeks a year where you get this. You get these really late matches because of daylight savings time. It's terrific. We all get to sleep in an extra hour and watch the games. So the Bournemouth Luton on Wednesday. We also have Champions League and Europa League this week. Those are less FPL relevant, although I will note that West Ham, one of the few teams that plays in Game Week 29, has a fixture, and I think they're down 1-0 in that match as well. So it's a uh, well, actually, yeah, it's so it's an especially important one for
Freiburg.
them.
Yeah, as are
Freiburg.
Arsenal. Arsenal are down 1-0 to Porto. They host them at
Yep.
home on Tuesday. Now, I guess
Right.
Arsenal will certainly play a full strength 11 there. They have to. It's a big
Yep.
game for them, but playing Tuesday is a benefit to FPL managers because there's plenty of off time before the weekend before we have to figure out who and
Yeah.
Arteta's
Of course,
not one to rotate.
yeah, and it doesn't matter for Arsenal anyway, right? For our purposes, because they don't have an FPL match
That's true. Yeah,
this
that's true.
weekend. So yeah, I think it'll be kind of interesting to see. I don't think am I forgetting to and Villa, of course, as well. Villa play on Thursday too, and they play Ajax, and that's at Villa Park. So that'd be kind of a fun match too. That's Conference League, but I think they'll still take that seriously. Why not, right?
Of course they will. And I think
Yeah.
they're on a 0-0 draw with Ajax going
Yep.
into that match.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
level. I know. Yeah. So, and then Brighton, of course,
Woo!
Brighton don't play, but there was a debate this weekend about how much or you and I think of the Patreon pod talked about how much they would go for it in their match on Thursday, because I think they're down. Is it four
4 goals? Yeah.
4 goals.
Their hands are
Yeah.
tied a little bit with it being a home match. They can't just lay down and die.
Exactly.
Home supporters will want to see something.
Yeah.
And I mean, take your 1-0 victory, De Zerbi, and try to spin it into something positive. I feel like being a Brighton fan right now is it's tricky. I mean, yeah, it's been a very up and down season in terms of that team's form.
So who do you have left for game week 28? Like who do you still have to play in your squad?
Yeah. So the grand miracle, and maybe I'll share my team here.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you're going to share your team.
No, I'm gonna stop
While
sharing. Yeah, you go ahead. I didn't know you were gonna. I didn't know where you were going with this. Go ahead. You're
yeah,
a
we're
wild card.
full of surprises.
Hmm.
Yeah, so let me go hit the share button. That's great. Okay, so the biggest pleasant surprise for me on Saturday was Issa Kabore actually got the start and played the full 90 for Luton. Of
Right.
course, it resulted in 1 point.
One single point. Yeah.
Yeah, and the injuries continue to mount up. Osho was fit again for Saturday and then got injured with Bell out as well. Does Kabore keep a start just because they're getting short at the back? I'm not sure. I mean,
Hmm.
Kabore hasn't had like a notable game in months.
Listen,
So
if you get one more point from him, that's a win,
I'll be
right?
blessed. Yeah, I'll be
Yeah.
blessed
Yep. Yep.
for sure. So I've potentially got Kabore. I've got Botman and Palmer in that Monday fixture. And then I, of course, have Big Dom, Captain Solanke, to go with Bournemouth. So I ended up just using one free transfer to move Tony to Solanke, and I if Tony had actually put in that sort of like mid range, like midfield shot against Ramsdale, I would have kicked myself because that would have been the
Yeah.
second time. If you flash back to me moving Watkins in his
Yeah.
23-pointer to
You'll
Carl
never get
Morrison.
over that, will you? Yeah.
And if I'd gone for Solanke just because of the double and lost out on Tony points, so that doesn't sting really at all. And all of the other captaincy options that you would have gone for if you swerved the double, be it
Yeah.
Saka, be it Watkins, be it a City player, they didn't come
Yeah.
through either. So I think
I know
that
a couple
is salve.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. A couple people on our Discord I know went for Sun, but to me, Sun would not have been at the top of my list of non double like double game week assets. I mean, I agree. I think Saka would have been. I mean, in fact, you and I both vice captain Saka. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I probably even would have gone Holland third, right? Just because Holland is such a goal bot, that I would have just sort of like
Hmm.
assumed that. I mean, that game has also seen lots of goals over the years. Right? It would have been shocking for him to score in that match. He actually had a really great. I mean, I thought Van Dijk had a really good match. It was really. I thought that the reason that City didn't win, I think it was in large part because of Van Dijk, and I think he had some great moments in that match. The only thing that was kind of funny was not to get like too off FPL here for a second, but it's just so odd to me that they had four center backs in that match at one point, and they somehow still conceded from a set piece. That corner kick. Did you think that Stones scored on that corner kick? Like to me,
Hmm.
I thought he like it. It just was the angle. I don't think even the announcers knew. It was like a
Yeah.
strange moment.
It was only Stones wheeling away in celebration that you knew
Yeah,
it had gone in, and I thought the
yeah,
commentary got it spot on and likening it to when in against Barcelona in the Champions League, Trent put the corner into Origi for
yeah,
that
yep,
amazing goal.
oh yeah,
Tricky
the fake
play.
out. Yep.
But yeah, the center backs at City once again do are you could put the loss at the feet again of the center backs. Ake with a horrible hospital pass backwards that results in an injured goalkeeper and a
Oh
penalty.
man, I was on this pod last week, Brandon, talking about
Do tell.
how Ederson was my favorite keeper in the Premier League. I thought he was the best keeper in the Premier League, even despite his wildness. I
Hmm.
thought so.
It was
And then
part
he
of his
proceeds to
charm, his
go.
charisma.
Yeah, and then he proceeds to go thigh high, Brandon, thigh high
Uh-huh.
tackle, and like such a stonewall tackle. I almost kind of admired it. It was like if you're going to clean a guy out, you might as well just absolutely go for it. Just like he really belted Darwin, and that was kind of fun. And then I was also relieved to see that Darwin didn't take the pen. That they had McAllister's as we all of us know, an absolutely terrific pen taker, and so to see him got there. I mean, he's such a good pen taker that Ederson actually guessed right on the stop, right? But it was just
Sure.
so well placed and so high that
It
it
was an
was
incredibly taken
unstoppable.
pen. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
all credit. And that, yeah, we got our like Kong versus Godzilla moment when Holland was released one on one effectively with Van Dyke, and Van Dyke kind of allowed Holland to go to his left and pushed him and just stayed with him. If Holland would have just maybe taken one more touch before he shot it, but Holland
yeah,
knew that Van Dyke was still with him.
yeah.
And there's, it's
Do you
just
agree with me about Van Dijk about his play in this match?
Well, I agree that he had a really great match. I don't agree that he was solely responsible. It was an
I don't think
incredible.
I didn't say solely. Or if I did, I didn't mean solely.
Yeah,
But he had a great
sure.
degree of responsibility for the point.
Well, I just think it was an incredible all-around team pressing performance by Liverpool. City could
Mm,
not and
yeah.
struggled to get out of their half and could not get their system going. And
Yep.
every player on Liverpool was pressing so hard, and
Yeah.
I'd never seen a team work harder than that
Yeah.
against City. So it was an
Yeah.
incredible all-around performance, I
I
thought.
know I really wish that Klopp would reconsider because it feels like you like, especially with Salah out on the pitch, it's like you saw a version like this is like what Liverpool are going to look like over the next 5 years, right? Like sort of all of these kind of young players in the match, and it was sort of
Well,
just
people were
yeah,
freaking out about the starting 11, about like, oh, this is kind of a weak starting 11. And if you're Xabi Alonso, why would you come this way? And you could poke holes in the starting 11. But looking at that midfield with Endo, Sabazlai, and McAllister,
yep,
three youngish players who are
yeah.
hitting the peak of their career, I think that midfield is awesome. So,
I agree. Like so unlike last year, right? When that felt like they were really feeling, Fabinho absence, or I guess he was still there, but he was playing really poorly, right? But yeah, I think Harvey Elliott's terrific, and I thought Bradley had a good match as well. So
yes.
yeah, good, a very fun match, the kind of match that makes you suffer through game weeks like 28, right? Where you
Hmm.
sort of but yeah, and then obviously, Spurs too. We didn't even talk about that. I mean, Son
Yeah,
has basically saved both of our game weeks,
sure.
right? I'm on 35 points, and 17 of those 35 points come from one player, right? All of which came, I think, in the last 20 minutes of that match too.
Yeah, and Son is just like the late match hero this season, and yeah, it's saved me as well. It's sort of like now I don't even have to worry about this game week. Certainly, if
Yeah,
Solanke goes off, triple captainers might supersede my green
yeah.
arrow.
But
But
from an effective
yeah,
ownership standpoint, though, he's actually he's at like 170, 180. So
hmm,
it's not quite in my head. I was kind of with you. I thought the triple captainers would move him over that. So like basically like every point he scored would be bad for me,
yeah.
and that might be true from like a mini league perspective, but certainly overall it's good for us if he does something on Wednesday.
Yeah. So as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, looking at my team, I don't have anywhere close to a squad for game week 29. So we need to talk about the free hit. Josh, anything you want to share your game week 29 team and tell us who else you
Yeah. Well,
got left to go?
before we do that, yeah. Well, game week 28, I have Palmer to go on tomorrow, and then I just now, because I did not make a Bournemouth defender transfer, I only have Solanke as well, so I only have two players left for the game week. It'll be fun to have Palmer tomorrow. He's not quite at like universal ownership the way he had been
Hmm.
the last couple of weeks, so I'll, we should get something from a return from him there. But yeah, I think we should actually talk a little bit about, well, first of all, before we go any further, Brandon,
Please.
let's do a quick shout out to our Patreon supporters. I was mentioning the Discord earlier. I was talking about last week's Patreon pod earlier, Brandon,
Hmm.
and Patreon's where you can go to support the podcast. I want to say thank you to the cheaters for doing one free podcast each week, and then one bonus pod for our Patreon supporters. You can go to patreon.com/always cheating. Yeah, thank you to everyone who supports the pod, has continued to support the pod, over the years. And, we get new patrons every season, every week practically. And so thank you so much, everyone who supports the podcast. Once again, patreon.com/always cheating is where you can go. All right, Brandon, there was that clean break that I was looking for. So
Was.
now we move on to game week 29. And I want to, before I even talk about my own team, I don't want to get caught up in Josh talk. Okay, here, I could talk
Nobody
endlessly
wants
about
that, to
my.
be honest.
I do, but other than me, it's a one person.
Hmm.
There's probably somebody out there, Brandon. So we have 8 teams that play in game week 29, right? Burnley host Brentford, Luton host Forest, Fulham host Spurs, and West Ham, wouldn't you know, they host Aston Villa. Brandon, it's actually kind of useful to have these two Europa League teams play each other, or I guess Europa Conference League teams play each other, because doesn't screw anybody else up, right? They can just play on Sunday and leave
fine.
that open. So
Yeah.
we got a nice, I would not say action-packed weekend, but we do have matches.
It's a weekend.
There are matches on the television. So we have, and I think I will say, building my free hit team, it's fun to have a team of players that are, and looking at the fixtures for 29, it's basically Spurs and Villa are like the two squads that have players that you're consistently starting, right? Like I will start Anthony Robinson sometimes. I suppose I've started Areola to no great distinction. I mean, I'd never seem to start him for his like massive hauls. But otherwise, yeah, it's a mix of players that you just don't really own or start very often. And so that is kind of fun in a way, right? Like it's sort of, there's a satisfaction in just being like, yeah, I have, well, we'll go through it in a second, but like I have Mooney's in my team right now, Brandon. It's amazing. Frankie Mooney's son. He's done a great job since he's come up.
Sure. I just saw Frankie Muniz in a Hair Club for Men Canada advertisement. So that's what he's been up to.
I'm sure that the success of Mooney's, his child it's brought the Mooney's name back out there. People want to be in the
generational wealth.
Yeah, exactly. They're all experiencing it now, which is terrific. So, but I want to go through the options for each club first. Okay. So let's talk through that a little bit as well, and just sort of think a little more broadly about who we might consider, because it's very easy, I think, to, especially when you're free hitting, or even if you're not free hitting, right? It's like it's very easy to like just problem solve and be like, okay, I have one slot that I have open still. How do I fill it, right? But I think it's better to think a little more broadly about the teams that are playing this week. So kick things off, we have Burnley. In some ways, the least exciting of all of the squads that you could have for game week 29.
In all ways, I mean, Josh, don't sell them short.
In all ways, I think there are really only two players that would even be worth thinking about for a minute. And one would be Fofana, who's played quite well, honestly, scored this weekend. Like a minute in, like classic, like, great. Don't have to watch that West Ham match now, just sort of like instant goal. And then Trafford as well. And Trafford, I think the goalkeeper picks in general for game week 29 are all bad. Like there's really, Vicario is a good goalkeeper pick, but you probably want to have three Spurs elsewhere in your squad, right? So he sort of loses some of his appeal, I think, because of that. You could go for Leno, but again, I have basically three attacking players from Spurs that I'm having in that match. So what kind of story am I telling myself, right? If I'm going to have three of those players in Leno. So I think you could consider going for Trafford just because just classic, like home match. I think there's a good chance that none of these matches end with clean sheets in game week 29. So maybe take a player who's going to have an opportunity to like just get like a bunch of saves, right? I mean, from that like lens, I think you could actually argue for like Emi Martinez might be someone you could consider as well. Like, I don't know, do you have like a goalkeeper that you sort of are leaning towards right now for 29?
Yeah, I think Flecken and Martinez are the ones that stand out to me, and I think I would reverse the logic on the Burnley Brentford fixture and say maybe Burnley as the home fixture will be on the front foot, but they're not very good. So there will be some like low percentage shots heading Flecken's way, and he would have the best likelihood of
with Flecken. There are no low percentage shots. Low percentage shots.
That's true. He's
low
terrible.
Percentage shots turn into high percentage shots when Flecken faces them. So there's no way they're keeping a clean sheet. But I agree. Like maybe they're. I mean, he's fine. I've seen Flecken's at the top of all the charts, but as a Flecken owner for many weeks this season, he will not be my game week 29 starting keeper. That is a Josh Landon promise. And I actually have Kaminsky right now as my keeper.
Okay.
Why not? I mean, Forest are playing terribly right now. Like to me, it does like, I don't know. Like Kaminsky seems like a much more fun player to have than Flecken, like the worst keeper in the Premier League.
That Brighton Forest game on Sunday was kind of interesting in that Forest did have a fair amount of the ball. They just could not. They're not ones for goal scoring right now. And Nuno's playing this interesting rotation game of like trying to figure out who his best players are, etc.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be easier for him if he didn't have a squad of 50 players to select from. Yeah. But I 100% think Forest are good for one or two goals this weekend.
Okay. Just just cause like you just think they're like gonna turn it around. He's gonna find
Well,
a Nuno. Yeah, he'll find a way. Nuno.
well, no, I think Luton aren't very good. For one.
Right? That's true. Okay, that's fair. That's a better that argument. I'm like more sympathetic to. That's fair. Yeah.
No, yeah. Forest for the top four. Yeah, they're gonna turn it around so hard. They're
Yeah.
gonna finish in the top four this season. No, of course not.
Well, I will say, I mean, on the Brentford front, I think part of my thinking is just that I probably will end up having a Brentford defender that I'm starting, and I just don't want to be doubled up, right? Like if Reguilon is healthy, I'll probably end up with him in my squad. You have Roerslev as well, who's the right wing back, and I mean, what's nice is that I put together a free hit team for Game Week 29, and I had 8.2 million left in the bank. And that was like, wow. I had literally every single player that I wanted, and I had 8 million left to spare. So you can really, you can empty the bank on this particular.
Would you just cheekily put Erling Haaland and Mo Salah on the bench?
I should. Yeah, I should. Yeah, I'm too haunted by canceled fixtures over the last couple of years. So, but yeah, so Roerslev, I think, and then yeah, I think the thinking there is just like I don't want to be doubled up on Brentford.
Yeah,
defenders.
I was looking at my free hit. I haven't gone full tinker and put a free hit together yet, but the double up on Brentford I was thinking of is Wissa and Tony. And I love from last weekend the montage of Wissa doing 3 attempts at an overhead kick, and the third is the one that converts to that goal. And listen, Josh, we're always looking as fantasy managers for signs of confidence with our attacking players, and nothing says confidence by overzealous, ill-fated attempts at overhead kicks.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I think it's you're right. It is a great sign of confidence. Like it's sort of yeah. I mean, they all want to be Wayne Rooney in the Manchester Derby, don't they, Brandon? Yeah, the old
or the young kids now want to be Garnacho. They're carving lines in their eyebrows and doing all sorts of weird stuff.
Yeah, I hope those are the only lines they're carving, Brandon. The
here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, let's move from Burnley on to Brentford then, because I think Brentford are another. We've started to talk about them already, basically. But I think Ivan Toney is sort of for people who don't have a free hit in Game Week 29, and they're going to try to kind of gut it out. I would say that Toney is one of the picks that is going to be kind of certainly consensus for all free hitters. And I think if you aren't free hitting, he's certainly one of the players that I would look to. Right. Like if you didn't have Son already, then sure, like Son would be kind of top of the list. But if you already have Son, I think if you're debating between like Madison and Toney, I just see Brentford scoring in this match. Right. I see them scoring
easily.
Yeah. And so a couple of goals, most likely. And so
Toney's a captaincy shout this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. So I think Toney, I think Vissa makes a lot of sense too. And I actually don't think the third forward slot is quite as cut and dry as I've seen the sort of templates spit out, right? I've seen a lot of Carlton Morris. And to me, like Carlton Morris is well, Ollie Watkins, obviously, right? So Watkins is kind of like the one that everyone would kind of already, most likely have and start. And then Ivan Toney makes a lot of sense as well. And then that third pick, I've seen a lot of people kind of defaulting to Carlton Morris. And well, I think that's fine because Luton home to Forest, Luton can score goals. Yeah, pen taker. I don't think he's a terrible pick, but I do think that you could make an argument for Vissa, right? Like you did, like just another, in form player. When he was in form at the beginning of the season, he was terrific, right? Sure. And so, like you say, maybe he's found his confidence again a little bit. Left for AFCON for a while as well, of course. And so, I think that he is. I believe now I'm like. Remember, did he actually get called up? It doesn't matter. He was out of form, if nothing else.
He was had an injury issue, so I don't remember if he even played any matches in AFCON. But he was still absent during that period.
He was gone from 21 through 25. So nice. Whatever he was gone for, I wish him the best, and I hope he's doing great. Right.
So making Dune 3.
He's out there making Dune. He's out there making Dune 3 right now. Exactly. Brandon, you just saw Dune 2 today, so I feel like you're going to be peppering this podcast with
the Wissa Hesarek. That's what we'll call my team name from now on.
Yeah, I like that I accidentally said Zune as well. If you were going to pepper this podcast with Zune references, that'd be terrific.
The
Microsoft's great competitor, the great
music
competitor
player,
to the iPad or the iPod. the iPod, of
God,
course.
we've seen a lot of Apple
Yeah.
products, haven't we?
But I will say, just while we're talking about forwards, and we haven't got to Forrest yet, but I do think that Mooney's deserves a shout as the third forward pick. And he, if only because they're home. And if you look at what he's done at home in the last three home matches for Fulham, he has 11 points when they played Brighton at home in game week 27, 8 when they played Villa at home in 25, 13 when they faced Bournemouth at home in game week 24, and then 8 that was actually away to Burnley in 27. But double digit returns in 2 of his last 5 matches. Has scored in the last 3 matches at home, and in fact he scored 4 goals in those last 3 matches at home. So and Spurs are not a strong defensive team. Like I don't see any reason why to think that Fulham are going to fail to score in this match, right? So
Van de Ven down with looks like another hamstring injury, so they'll be without their best center back,
right?
And Fulham love to score at home.
Romero's always got a mistake in him, right? It's like there's just a lot of a lot of reasons to think that Fulham are going to score in this match. And at this point, I'd say that Muniz is basically like you're the Fulham supporter on this podcast, but Muniz has been sort of like the sort of talismanic player for them, right, in the second half of the season, like the one who's really helped them to start scoring goals again.
Yeah, Fulham have been looking for somebody to step up since Mitro left, and Raul Jimenez was going to be that guy, and he just couldn't get it going. And once he started scoring a few goals, he was injured. And Muniz was just a placeholder, and he hadn't even scored a single goal in the Premier League. Then Armando Broja, he's the only one that gives me pause because he's been starting from the bench, and he moved from Chelsea not to just sit on the bench. So I don't know what's going on in training there with Broja, but does Broja get a start at some point? I mean, Muniz, like finally his run has come to an end this weekend with that Wolves fixture. Now, the Molineux on the road is not the easiest fixture.
Yeah, it'd be pretty harsh, wouldn't it, for Muniz to get dropped from the bench?
I don't know if it's harsh when it's squad rotation, and Muniz is not. He's just not like a nailed on starter.
Right.
So, and whereas Broja has his own pedigree. So I'm just saying this is something that could happen. That's the one point against him.
Well, and what has Broja done so far since he's
not much
joined Fulham? Like,
not much.
Yeah. So not that I disagree with you, but I guess you like him to get some kind of attacking return off the bench or something first, right, before he sort of nails down that spot. But I guess you're right. They've been he's been getting 15 minutes, 16, 6, 10. He did get an assist when he came out.
It wasn't a real assist though. It was he actually kind of intercepted a cross from your boy Anthony Robinson, and it just deflected into the path of Iwobi. And then Broja then gets credited with the assist. So you wouldn't read into that. Suddenly he's got form and he's playing within the side.
Yeah, I've got Robinson even on my free hit squad. I shared it just while we're talking in case people who are watching the stream don't just look at our faces the whole time. But that feels very boring to me. I wouldn't want to see my own face for that long. But I have to hide my face when you and I do our pods. I don't need to see it the whole time.
Sure, too much, wearing your Phantom of the Opera mask. It's really kind of alarming, honestly.
So but all right. So back to Brentford. I think we talked about. Their defenders. It's a little bit like Bournemouth defenders this week, right? There's like a handful of options, and none of them are great, but it's kind of slim pickings, and so most of us probably have one. I do think that if he's back and available, I do think that most of us will go for what's his name? He's on loan from Man United, the fullback, left wing.
Oh, Reguilon.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we'll probably go. I don't know. I mean, it's just nerve wracking because you just don't want to bring in a player who was injured enough to not be able to play a minute in this match, and then just sort of hope that he's maybe healthy enough. Yeah.
I've not been a fanatic with his form at Brentford either. It's like he's playing his way into like a mid-table La Liga side the way he's going, and
yeah.
I would lean more towards somebody like Nathan Collins just to get a body on the pitch. for
Yeah.
Brentford's defense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I suppose so. I feel like I want to try to get some kind of attacking fullback, but hopefully by Friday we get a little more information on the Brentford
Mm-hmm.
squad, right? And who we, who might be available. They're another squad that's so many injuries so far this season. I mean, it's too bad that I don't know if we're even going to get to see the Mbomo, Vissa, Tony like trio. I mean, I heard that Mbomo might be back and training. Who knows though? I don't know how much, like how, whether he's going to be available to play. Maybe he'll come on for a couple matches.
Yeah,
Down
I
the
can't
stretch here.
imagine Burnley away as the match that you bring him back for.
No, I mean they're sort of in this zone right now. They're a little bit like, I don't want to like get too like into on the beach cliche territory here, but
Mm-hmm.
you have to start thinking that they're kind of in that zone, right? Where they're not gonna go down. I mean, they're most likely, I suppose they probably have to pick up a couple more wins
It's
just
not
to make
happening.
absolutely sure, but it's not happening. There are so many teams that are worse than them this year. It's very unlikely, in my opinion. All right, well, let's keep going through some squads though, Brandon. You have Luton, and I feel like we've already done a lot of Luton Town. I mean, as you know, Brandon, we've done 15, 20 minutes of Luton talk on what feels like virtually every episode of the podcast so far this season. I don't know how it's worked out that way. But you have Carlton Morris. And what do you think about Carlton Morris? What are your thoughts on old CM?
Oh, yeah. I love this. Just clear the lane for my Carlton Morris take.
If you have them.
I mean, he's got beautiful eyes for one.
Handsome. Yeah.
Yeah, he cuts an interesting figure. I like him. I think he's got that classic sort of Premier League frame in that he's got the physicality to work in this league. He just doesn't really have the skill and doesn't play on the best of sides. I don't know why I had to cut him down at the kneecaps there, but I did.
I don't know either, but
I
wanted your honest opinion. So
that's the caveat to a player who I think like can in moments really perform at this level, and him being on penalties, him being really good in the air, I think, and he's a presence on set pieces. And you look at the the cascading injuries in the center back department for Luton and Osho, out back and then out again, and I think Morris becomes more of a target for Doughty. And we'll of course have to have our obligatory mention of Elfie, the alien life form that is Doughty.
Yeah, Elf. Yeah, responsible for the Palace goal, most likely too. He's. It's just like it's. But I love them because they scored again. Right, they are a fun team and worth talking about because they can score goals.
Yeah.
Right, that instantly elevates them over so many other promoted squads that just sort of come and go without us really ever remembering them. Right, like the second that Sheffield go back down, it's like we're not gonna be able to remember their faces. It's gonna be like the end of Coco. We're not gonna have like a little card that we put up on the Day of the Dead for Sheffield United.
That's the saddest thing I've ever heard on this podcast. Wow.
Yeah. Well, it's maybe for Chris Wilder. We all like him. All right.
I do not like Chris Wilder. I think he sucks, and I can't wait to see the back of him. Like, what an idiot!
All right. Well, there you go. I got a strong. There was Morris and Wilder. You went for it. I like it. Yeah. And so I threw Barkley, which is just like whatever, like another whatever pick. Like it's so unfun to have him.
Somebody was comparing. I think it was on Black Box. They were comparing for fun. Everyone's talking about Ross Barkley for the double game week. Blah 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 blah, and then they compare his stats to Jared Bowen, and Jared Bowen had like multiples of 4 on every stat to Ross Barkley. Now Bowen is an incredible player, and maybe that's apples and oranges, but it does seem like the Ross Barkley thing is overblown, is the point.
Yes. There's a reason that he was like a golden boy who's now playing for we're being too mean now, Brent. I don't know what happened to us. We're in a good mood, so I don't know why where this anger is coming from. All right, let's move on to better things then. To your beloved Forest, and I'm sure you've got lots of fun things. You already said earlier about how many goals you think they're going to score this weekend. So okay, here's the one. Gibbs White,
love him.
I know he's an underlying kind of stats guy, but I'm not like super like. Are you being sarcastic or true? Like, do you actually really want?
Okay, he'll be the first guy. He'll okay. He'll be
First
among the
guy on the free
first.
hit. Yeah.
I'm yeah. Yeah, I think he's a great pick for real. Like
Okay.
he's a Ward Prowse level set piece
He's
guy, dead
involved
ball
in stuff.
guy. He's
That's
very
true.
involved, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think he's quite good.
I have to admit, I on my current free hit, I have opted for Kudus and Douglas Luiz as kind of the two midfielders that I would sort of
Hmm.
like. For me, I think Madison, Son, and Bowen are the sort of three like. I don't know. I don't know. Is Wheel of Fortune an international show, Brandon? I'm not sure if it is or not,
May
but
as well be, yeah.
yeah. But in Wheel of Fortune, when you get to the last round, they give you a bunch of letters, right? That you don't even have to pick them yourself. They just give them to you, right? RS
RSTLNE.
Ellen, that's exactly right. Yeah, yeah. You jumped over me there because you were so excited
Stepped
to
on
show
your
that you
line.
knew them. No, it's great. I'm glad you know them. It's
What are your three consonants in extra vowel that you're picking on top of that?
RSTLNE, right? So, yeah, I'm going A, and M, and maybe N, and ooh,
N is already included in the RSTLNE.
I'm gonna get it twice though, and then
So in case it's like a
what about
penne pasta.
what about C? I
I
like
think C is
A, B.
great. C
Yeah.
is very useful
Why don't people just use A, B, C, and D? Those four are great.
that's
Like
the
I would just get.
curveball thinking that you get at always cheating. I agree. C is a hack in Wordle for any Wordle players.
Okay.
Any word that has a CH in it, C can crack that
Yeah.
code pretty quickly.
Yeah. All right. A, B, C, D. That's what I'm going with if I'm on
Cool.
Wheel of Fortune. Keep it. Sometimes you got to keep it simple. You can overthink these things, just like your free hit team. But anyway, the reason I brought that up is because there are a few players that it seems like everyone is going to have in their free hit squad. Now, Watkins is one of them as well. But I think Son, Bowen, Madison feel like the three. Madison he's in really good form at the moment. He is he links up so well with kind of everybody on Spurs. It's he's just a really good player. Obviously, and really when he's in form, very fun player to watch. And I haven't had him in my squad all season, so Madison for sure. Son, obviously, I think Son is probably the best captain pick, just given his form. If Charleston is out, then he'll presumably line up as forward. Although honestly, like it doesn't really. I mean, I guess he's a forward in the sense that he plays through the middle, but he's all over the pitch. Like he's not exactly Erling Haaland out there, right? Like hugging the last central defender. He's he's all over the place. Like and he's so fast, right? That it feels like he'll like win the ball in the defensive half. Set it up and pitch it out to Kulusevski or whatever, and then somehow he's still the first person to get down there. He's an amazing player.
Let's talk a little bit about Bowen, just like because we're talking about these must-haves.
Sure.
What's the deal with this guy? Now he's got 14 goals on the season. Well, I tip my cap to this man, but he has done diddly squat for his form fell off the cliff game week 19 against Arsenal.
Yeah.
Did nothing. Then he scores a hat trick in this explosive match against Brentford. And then suddenly everyone wakes up and they're like, well, I guess let's talk about Bowen again.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I'm not that interested.
Why?
Yeah, West Ham are dire attacking wise. Again, if you look at that Brentford 4-2 win as an outlier, and I'm suggesting we should, absolutely hopeless against Brentford, or I'm sorry, against Burnley today, and they didn't even have a shot on target in the first half against Burnley. It's awful stuff.
Well, I think the rationale would just be that there aren't that many guys with like 15 plus point upside for game week 29, and he's one of them, right? It's like he just he could have a match where he gets a couple of goals, and it wouldn't be that like shocking. And some of the other players, you have to tell a pretty crazy story, right, in order to get to 15
maybe.
Points.
I mean, he's playing Aston Villa. Now, Aston Villa are not a great road team this season, but they're a good team. As opposed to just going back to my guy, Morgan Gibbs White. And he's at Luton Town. I just wonder if that's
I agree. It's just like I don't think Forrest are in a especially good run of form, and even Gibbs White. I think on the season he's got 3 goals and 7 assists. I mean, it's not like he's done much, right? I mean, he looks good, and I think he's a bit of an underlying stats favorite. So you sort of stumbled into an underlying stats favorite pick, Brennan, even though you're sort of avowedly anti-stat. It's sort of a fun. It's always fun when you
Sure.
align with
You,
those.
oh,
With
you, you don't
that
have to
crew.
be a stats guy to know how many goals and assists somebody has. Okay.
That's true. But you're not picking him for goals and assists, right? You're picking him because of moxie,
Hubris,
je ne sais
ego.
quoi. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. These
absolutely.
things are
Yeah.
all the bigger factor
He's a
here.
born leader.
All right, well, let's get back to my little. I took the time to put all these players on a sheet of paper,
Yeah, let's
Brennan.
do it.
So yeah, so we got Gibbs White. A1E is I would say realistically not somebody that we're going to be looking at. There's honestly just too many forward picks, and I think he'd be further down the list. Chris Wood is now back as well, and so although Chris Wood he will not be making my squad, but I you know I point him out to show that I remember that he plays for Forest, Brandon. And so there you go. Chris Wood plays for Forest, confirmed. All right, it brings us to Fulham. We talked about Mooney's a little bit. I don't think we need to go through that again. The question really for me is whether there are any midfielders worth considering. And you have Alex Iwobi, who's probably maybe the form player. And I mean, Andreas is, I think, their best midfielder, but fantasy wise, he's been just kind of up and down. He gets subbed early a lot too. And I mean, what do you think about Andreas?
I don't like him. I don't think he's had a great season.
Fantasy wise.
Yes, I don't like him fantasy wise either.
Yeah. You don't like him as a person or fantasy wise?
I like him as a person. I would definitely start a small business with Andreas Pereira. If he wanted to go out on a date with my wife in which they didn't touch, I'd be fine with that as well.
Okay, platonic date.
Yeah, that's just like friends who wanted to talk about Dune 2 or something like that.
Sure.
Harry Wilson is one who intrigues me. Now, you talk about the explosiveness of somebody like Jared Bowen. Harry Wilson is a goal scorer. He can sometimes play a little wide. And that's the beauty of somebody like Bowen is he's kind of a winger who is playing in the number 9. Interesting to see how he started and played with Mikel Antonio, and Antonio sucked up a little bit of the 18-yard box energy that you would want Bowen to have. But anyway, Harry Wilson is, he started the last 3 games since coming back from injury. That's the worry with him, is he's got like niggles. But he has that explosivity if you want to compare him to somebody like Iwobi. Now, Adama
he scored a couple of goals too, right? He scored.
He scored last week.
Goal and assist. Yeah, goal and assist in the Brighton match, and he had a great chance. I was watching the Wolves match because of my dumb failure to make a transfer, because now suddenly the Anthony Robbins' return meant a lot to me, and he had a great chance to score in that match too. And so I do think there's. I think that's kind of a fun pick. I mean, people were asking about some of the questions we got for the pod were about under the radar picks, and I think first of all, there are a lot. Right. Yes. This is one of the reasons why we're going through all these squads. There are a lot of picks. Like, don't just feel like, oh, there's no options. I've got to default to what everybody else is doing. I mean, you even made a case for maybe not having Bowen, right? Like there are, you don't have to default to a particular team this week. Right. And so I think, throw in a Wilson. I actually think that's a great strategy and like a real way to make fantasy fun again in GW29 is have at least one player in your 11 that nobody else you think is going to have, right? Like if I probably won't keep both these guys, but if I kept Mooney's and Kudus, like those are both kind of in that category. I'm not saying that I am picking like obscure players that no one's ever heard of before, right? But like they're sort of a little further down the kind of pecking order of options, right? And so the returns, I guess I just think in general that people are going to get a little and I know everyone listening is not free hitting, but the people who are, it's very easy, I think, to get kind of caught up in like, social media spaces, other, pods like ours.
Spaces, Twitter Spaces,
spaces. Even like our Discord, right? Like you're going to see a lot of similar teams, and there's like a feeling like I kind of want to go bold here, but everybody else is going to have this player, and so I need them covered. And it's just really not. It's not going to be represented. Basically, almost virtually everyone that you're going to have in your free hit is going to end up having like a really nice, effective ownership bump for you, right? Like sure, maybe Son won't, but like in general, I think and Watkins, right? But virtually everyone else, I think is you're going to be surprised by how many points you're going to get, right, from them on a free hit.
Well, let's see. I'm curious now that you mentioned it. What is Son's current ownership? Any guesses? Do you know? Just
Well, I
guess.
think it was going into today's match. I think it was around 60% of effective ownership. I don't know what it is, like overall in the
Teams
game.
selected by, the number is 27%. So as
Yeah,
far as like
yeah,
a sort of universally beloved historically fantasy asset, it's not crazy. I feel like there's still
yeah,
some juice to squeeze from
yeah.
Sun there.
That's true. We're not talking about game week one Holland here, right? It's definitely like a different situation.
Hmm.
All right, well so I think that, yeah, I think there are plenty of options on Forest, and then I think the defense. I think you could make a case for at least. I still have Robinson on my bench. He's a 90-minute player. I think there's a decent chance to get an attacking return in this match. I mean, we're not talking about. He's not Andy Robertson, but like he's a, he's like a decent bench a decent bench asset, I think, for game week 29. And I think you could go with Leno if you wanted, just another home keeper. They've been good at home. That Spurs are going to send a ton of shots. Like
Yes.
I think they're going to score a couple of goals, but like it's a certainty that he's going to have like six
Hmm.
saves in this match, right? So I think you could make a case for Leno as well.
Yeah, I like him as a shot stopper for sure. Yeah, it's such a
Yeah.
roll of the dice with the keeper this week. It is kind of interesting.
It is, right? And yeah, Vicario would be, well, we can move now to Spurs, right? So
Please.
Vicario would be the pick, but again, I think the best three players you could have from Spurs, and this isn't like breaking any ground here, but I think it's Son, Madison, and Poro. And if you want to make a case for Odogi over Poro, I think that's fine. Like I think those are both um, very close, right?
Yep.
Poro is and I do think that Poro is. I mean, I don't know. He had a great match today, right? And so it's. I think any worries that maybe he was like a little diminished with Madison back. Maybe those worries have been, quelled a little bit
Yeah.
after today.
Yeah, I like the Poro pick. And the Madison, we just really haven't talked about him at all since he came back from injury. And
Yeah,
he hasn't had that explosive match to warrant a lot of discussion. But
yeah.
lest we forget how incredible he was in the lineup that's really constituted itself presently at Spurs. He and Son both fit. I love Madison on a free hit. I need that. I need that sort of frisson in my fantasy
Hmm.
team again.
Yeah, I think that'll be. I think so as well. While you were talking, I was looking to see if there were any Richarlison news. I still haven't seen anything. If Richarlison is no, knee injury. It looks like he's still probably going to be out for a couple more weeks. So, if there was a chance that Richarlison could play this weekend, I think you could make a case for a Son, Richarlison, Madison
Sure,
midfield,
definitely.
and just like really going for it.
Yeah,
But the problem is that Richarlison's been out for just long enough now that even if he was healthy, I think he might be like more of a bench player, right? Even if he
yeah.
played in the game week.
And look at the options that that Postacoglu has. He would prefer probably to play Son through the middle, and now Brennan Johnson's playing decently. Kulusevski is
Yeah,
finally playing well this season, and
yeah,
Timo
yeah.
Werner, a couple of goals now under his belt. He's got
Yep.
a lot of options where he doesn't have to worry about throwing somebody in who's just come back from injury.
They're a fun team right now.
I
They're
love
like
it. Yeah.
I'm glad that they kind of reset
Hmm.
a little bit over the last few couple of weeks because it's just a, this is a really and again I feel like I know we're talking big picture a lot in this week's pod, but I think it's a really fun season for the Premier League in general. I think you have a three-way title race at the top, and then in Villa and Spurs you have two super interesting teams, right? That are just sort of that have been sort of fun to follow for various reasons, right? I mean, in some cases they like have both fallen spectacularly at times. So you have that, and then you've got the hot messes in Man United and Chelsea. So there's just
Hmm.
like a lot going on,
Sure.
across the board. It's been fun.
A lot of meat on that
Newcastle,
bone.
yeah, I think we can even throw Newcastle into that hot mess territory. Got three hot messes in Newcastle. Yeah, Newcastle, Chelsea, Man United, and maybe they're all turning the corner. I don't know. Man United had a nice win this weekend, so
Newcastle's more of like a lukewarm soup than a hot mess, in my opinion. But throw that.
it's getting pretty warm, I'd say. Yeah, I don't know. After that Arsenal match, it was certainly a hot mess. Maybe they've righted the ship a little bit since then, since the home win. All right, well, lots of options with Spurs. I mean, I listed 5 here, right? And you almost can't get Vicario just because it's. I guess the argument would be the argument for Vicario would be just the keeper options are all kind of bad, and he's the best keeper. Or well, I mean Martinez is up there as well.
Who do you think? What's the best chance of a clean sheet here? Just take that keeper idea out of your mind. Just straight up look at the fixtures. What's the best shout for a clean sheet?
I wonder if it's actually Villa at West Ham. I wonder if Villa of these 8 teams might be the best, might be the most. Mm-hmm. I do think that Luton could keep a clean sheet. I know they haven't kept many this season, but I think Villa, and West Ham will also be coming off the. Well, I guess Villa will be too, but they'll both be coming off Europe. I think I don't see Brentford keeping a clean sheet. I don't see Burnley keeping a clean sheet. I don't see Forest. I don't see Fulham. I don't see West Ham, right? So it's sort of, I mean, Spurs.
Tell me why you don't think Brentford can keep a clean sheet.
I just think that Burnley are like decent at home, and Brentford don't keep clean sheets to anybody. I mean, they're truly awful defensively. Yeah.
That's fair. I'd agree with one part of that sentence.
Well, Burnley. Burnley are bad for sure, but I mean, I just think at Turf Moor, I just think there's a chance that. I mean, it's like. If Brentford were hosting Burnley, then I probably would put them at the top. But I just think the away match factor has to be a little bit of a factor.
Got it.
All right, so that brings us to West Ham. You've got Bowen, who we've talked about already, and then Kudus and Paqueta. I think there are 2 other options there. And Ward-Prowse, I guess he subbed off at halftime in the match, which I was a little. I was competing with another match today, so I didn't watch too much of that one. But I think that I think that Kudus is just sort of a fun high upside pick. He's had some great moments this season, and Paqueta's maybe up there as well. Paqueta's another one where if you just want to be a little bit different, right? He might be somebody to throw out there. He's been injured for a while. He's been out since game week 19, so it's a little harder to evaluate him. But he did score in today's match, and so I think that he's somebody who you could, if you wanted to just kind of go for it a little bit. I think that he's a decent option, but I just think Kudus is excellent though. I've just really enjoyed watching him play this season. 6 goals and 6 assists, a couple of assists and 2 assists in his last 3 matches. Didn't really do much before then, right? He sort of had a really hot run kind of in the middle of the season from game week 11 to game week 18 or so, right? And game week 11 to 18 at 11 point return, 10-point return, 9 at a 16-point return, then another 9-point return. Left for a couple of weeks, came, I can't remember if he was injured or left for AFCON. I think he left for AFCON, and then came back, and took him a little while to reintegrate himself, it seems like. And since then he's been stronger. So
yeah, I'd much rather have the Kudus pick. Well, I don't know. Paqueta seems like a stretch. The goal that he scored this weekend, it just feels like a little bit of recency bias. He's not really a goal scorer for that team. Sure. Kudus is very mercurial in terms of form. He does feel like he is the high upside gamble in terms of the fun pick.
Exactly, mercurial, and I don't really know if he's going to stay. Honestly, I mean, part of the fun of I got my I'm sharing my screen here with you, but I think part of the fun of this week is just having some of these players in your squad, even if you don't keep them the whole week, right? But just Kudus, I would probably never buy him either, right? I don't enjoy buying streaky players, right? But if for a 1 week kind of punt like this, it's sort of fun to have a couple players that just have double-digit return ups. I would say in general, if you're trying to really build your team from scratch and not kind of look at any outside sources, that's where I would look. Who's got double-digit return potential, right? I think that's a really useful. You don't need steady baseline 3-point players, right? That's not what a free hit, I think, is kind of optimized for. I think it's better to chase some big returns, and I think that's certainly true of Madison, certainly true of Son. I think it's true of Bowen, Watkins, obviously, although I think everyone's going to have him regardless.
I think that's the strange thing about Aston Villa is we're talking about multiple midfield options for West Ham. Aston Villa, arguably the best side that's playing in this game week. And
Yeah.
as far as midfield picks, they just have a
Yeah.
lot
Why am
of
I not?
engine room guys
That's
with.
true. Why am I not just starting Douglas Luiz? Right? I've got him first bench right now. Like I probably should just start him because he's on pens and he's on free
Yeah.
kicks and yeah, he's always involved. He's
I
certainly
just
going to
think
play.
it's interesting with like Diaby's not in any form, Leon Bailey's not in great form, Ramsey's injured. The guys in the midfield left for Villa who actually make them a good team are more like engine room guys like
Yeah.
Tielemans and Louise and John McGinn.
Sadly, no, we will not have McGinn for game week 29 though. He
I know.
after the red card. Yeah.
Yeah. Bummer. Which actually is an interesting point. It does actually he's kind of an unsung hero for Aston Villa. McGinn being out, he is like the Gabriel Jesus,
Yeah.
um, more deeper lying Gabriel Jesus. Like he is such a dog on that pitch and just
Yeah.
like
He's
involved in
also
everything.
he's also part of the weird body Hall of Fame, right? Like a real he's got the body of a League One player. I love that he's out
Low
there
neck,
and
broad
doing it.
shoulders. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like a rugby look or something,
Hmm.
right? So anyway, all right. Well, that brings us to so we're end on Villa, who play at West Ham. They'll both be in Europe again, as I've noted before. So keep a close eye on the team sheets from those matches. Make sure no one gets injured. We got Watkins, of course. Nothing more needs to be said about him. Although I do think that he is a reasonable, if not possibly the best captain pick for game week 29. Right? I mean, we all talked about Son, and obviously Son is a great captain shot, but Watkins is one of the most consistent players in fantasy this season, right? Like
Yeah.
Salah levels of, and honestly with Salah upside at times, right? He's been so like lots of double digit returns this season, right?
Yep.
Explosive matches, home and away. Like, should we be considering Watkins more seriously as a captain pick for 29?
Well, when the team's humming, everyone gets involved, and Watkins is gifted enough with the hold up player, the heads up player that he's getting assists, and that kind of is a multiplier when it comes to
Yeah.
attacking returns. That's why he's done so well in fantasy this season. So I like that. I
He
hate that
likes it.
all. I like it. There's
Mikey
no
likes it.
the problem that we're going to have to overcome is there's no slam dunk good team, good player playing at home. The
Right.
most appealing players are all away, and
Yep.
Spurs, I guess, you would think on paper might have the tougher away match at
But
Craven
Brandon,
Cottage.
what if I told you that in Watkins' last 3 away matches, the smallest score that he's had in those 3 matches was 13 points. He has
Jeez.
his last 3 away matches, he has 13 points, and 18 points. So you have to go back to Everton away in game week 21 for him to have a non-double digit return in an away match.
It's
So
compelling evidence, Josh.
yeah, it is, and I think you can also argue that it may suit his game playing a team like West Ham because West Ham are at home. They're going to be this is a match where presumably they will think they can win, right? They'll play this match to win, right? Despite Villa being higher on the table, it's not like you're playing Man City at home or something like that, right? So
Mhm.
that it could be that the sort of that opens them up to some counterattacking moments,
Yeah.
and Watkins is terrific in those moments, right? And so I
Maybe,
almost,
but
I
West
yeah, I
Ham
wonder if I
are
could talk
the counter.
myself. Yeah, go ahead.
West Ham are the counterattacking team, though.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's what they did against Arsenal too, right? So I think I think it'll be tricky. Although, of course, once Arsenal figured it out, they kind of annihilated them in the return fixture in that match. So
Mhm.
maybe Moyes. I don't know, Brandon. Do you think
He's
Emery can
learning.
out tactic Moyes? I don't know. We'll
God.
see.
Just the freaky, wrinkly guy Darby there.
Yeah, intense guy Darby. That's like
It's
the
a
more
very
intense manager
intense
in the
manager
Premier League.
Darby. That's right.
I think that so obviously you see Watkins, David Luiz, we've talked a lot about on the pod over the year. I think the defensive questions are pretty tricky though, right? Like Martinez, I think is a fine option, a fine defender pick. He's a goalkeeper obviously, but a fine defensive pick for game week 29. Dean and Moreno, I think, are a little too risky because they're both good players and they have been kind of. I'm not sure which one kind of wins the start, right?
Yeah.
And I think kind of it may also depend on who starts the Europa League match on on Thursday, and maybe the one who doesn't. But again, it's just like I don't really want to go into this free hit being kind of having no idea if my player is actually going to start for me this weekend. It feels like that's not what I want to be doing on a free hit, right? Like if it's a long-term buy, sure, that's different. But so I think it's a little tricky with those two.
So we talked about Academy Awards earlier, and I'm giving out the award, much ballyhooed, award for most pathetic season. And I'm giving it to Matty Cash.
Okay.
Pathetic.
Uh-huh.
It is a miracle that there is no like for like replacement that Emery apparently has at his disposal. That this guy keeps getting starts, but he is. I mean, I just can't see a world in which I've got Matty Cash on a free hit.
I
I'm
love
not
it.
doing it.
I love when you find a player to hate because you really you dig in. It was Richarlison for a long time. Who else have you
Still
hated over the
is.
years? Does anyone else come to mind? Any players you really hate?
Oh, it's all buried so
Okay.
deep within
Yeah.
me. They're there.
Okay.
I know there
Yeah.
are. Yeah, there's a whole. They're all in the cellar of my heart.
Oh, I got a few as well. I mean, make no mistake about it. So, all right. Well, those are your clubs, Brennan. And then I knew we would end up there'd be a lot of meat in the bone. We ended up talking through everything. Didn't even really need to talk about my free hit team, honestly, because I think it features those players, but it's a combination of players that's going to change a lot over the next few weeks. You give me something to think about with Mooney's. Maybe I swap him out for somebody. I don't mind the Gibbs White, by the way. I couldn't even end up with Gibbs White. I wonder if you sort of actually gave me my answer, though, which is that Aston Villa are the best team that play in game week 29. Why do I only have one player from the best team in my starting 11? I should probably change that. And so that might be an argument for having at least one more in my squad.
Yeah, if you want to streamline things, you go 3 Spurs, 3 Aston Villa, and then you get creative on the margins. So I think that's the way I intend to approach my free hit is I play on the side that's just a straight up score guessing game. There are many variations of this game. You guess the right score, you get 3 points. You guess the right result, whether it's a draw or a win, you get 1 point. Yep. And I find that often my score predictions are more on point than my fantasy predictions. So what I intend to do with my free hit is start with looking at the fixtures and thinking at what I think the results are going to be, and then I'll work backwards from there, thinking about the free hit.
Could you just do that for fantasy
going
forward?
You could, but with fantasy, because you have limited transfers, often week to week, you have the team that you have. And so you kind of have to work around. And what I find is you can't let the team that you have in fantasy influence your score predictions, because you often with your fantasy team try to tell a story that's advantageous to you. And when you're just like fresh every week predicting what the outcomes are going to be, then you're a little more truthful in what you think about the players and the teams. And with the free hit, you get that blank slate. You don't come in with any baggage.
You're not thinking about a handful of strong fixtures over the next several weeks or whatever. Well, I think that's a good place to end the kind of free hit conversation. 2 last questions. And one is, we need to look briefly at the other side of this, which is SRS. Is there any hope for us stubborn non-free hitters? Is having the main attackers enough? Son, Watkins, Bowen, Tony, along with 3 more peripheral players. Yes, I think it's fine. What I think it's, if you have 7 or 8, you're probably fine. What I don't like, and Brendan, please tell me if you disagree here, but what I don't like are the people who are like, I can get to 8 with a -12, but it allows me to save my free hit. And to me, I'm just like, well, at that point, you're 3 down on, and some people may have already played their free hit too. Yeah. So that's a different story there. But but if you're on 8 with 8, and I'm like a -8 or a -12. And you're also gonna be 3 points back for everybody else, and you may even still not have like kind of the optimal squad for a free hit. I don't really see it, because I'm just not convinced that having that free hit for like a double game week down the line is worth more than 20 to 25 points, right? Like whatever squad you have, you'll probably have a bunch of double game workers already, and you can use your transfers to get there, right? And so I
What
just
are
don't
people
love it.
doing with
Yeah.
these double game week free hits anyway? Because the questions we'll be asking ourselves and answering on this podcast going into those big double game weeks are, which single game weeker is going to outscore? Why am I,
Right. Yeah.
is the all the Son, Salah, Holland, Watkins? Why not just go with these guys? We're all still going to
Yeah.
have the best
Well,
players.
yeah, yeah, that's exactly right, right? Because you're not going to be free hitting, right? Like so, or I mean, actually, I guess in that case, you might be like we're literally talking about free hitting, but in general, yes, I agree, and I think, and also we just saw like there's a FPL rabbi had a note earlier about should we make a ground rule for next season not to overdo the mini double game weeks for teams in the ninth place and under. It never seems to work, does it? Well, that also applies to just regular double game weeks too, right?
Yeah.
The big ones, right? Yeah, it's great that you can like take a free hit and you can double up on whatever, more Bournemouth defenders or something like that, right? But it's like you might be better off just having your dumbest Stupinon picking there, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like, sometimes you're better off just like not even like just pretending that the double gaming doesn't exist, right? And so I think that that's going to be true in some of these other doubles down the line too. Now, gaming 29 is just unique, right? Because again, there's only 4 fixtures. It's a totally different scenario,
Sure.
right? You need to have players from these squads, or it's 0 points. And so I think that
Well,
I
where's the
think in that
poker
case, yeah,
analogy here? Is the poker analogy for, like, to Rabbi's question, going in on a small double game week, is that like betting pre-flop? Like, you're just kind of
right.
betting, hoping that you get some cards on the flop, and you're probably going to end up folding once once somebody with a stronger hand next to
Right, it's
you
like
bets
bluffing
you.
or something. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I have to think that. Yeah, it feels more like maybe it's like chasing. It's like chasing an open-ended straight draw or something like that, right? It's like there are 8 cards in the deck that can help you, but
Yeah,
the
right.
odds are pretty low,
Yeah.
right? Like it's yeah. So yeah, what is it? 32% on the turn and 16 on the river, right?
I
So it's
don't think, yeah.
yeah, odds are low.
I don't think the double game week strategy is ever going to change because the opportunity will always be there, and people will go for it. Maybe like
Yeah.
and I'm not sure the overarching strategy is ever going to change because the opportunity again will always be there.
Well, we're ending. I love this is like some of the more philosophical content that we've had on these. I wish we did it more often. I think it's our sweet spot, to be totally honest with you, Brendan. All right, well, let's end on this one. I'm gonna just let you. I'm gonna let you answer it however you want. I'm not even gonna talk. I'm gonna say this and take my question off the air. FPL SKS: How to make the last 10 game weeks MFFA? Right, make fantasy fun again. It says I used a triple captain this game week. Ooh, you're right, Slonky, I'm sure. And he said, and all 10 players have blanked so far. And it's an almost 10
Eesh.
million game week rank. It's carnage.
Wow.
How does SK, yeah, we're sympathetic here. How does SK have fun the last 10 weeks of the season?
Yeah, I think, well, yeah, this is always the easiest slash hardest question to answer. There are many ways to go about it, anything from starting a fresh mini league with a friend. If you're in a head to head league, this is always the best way. Like, I cannot stress enough, start a head to head league at the start of the season, and that will always give you something to root for week to week. And at the end of the day, I think you've got to be in it for watching the live football. And I don't think you should put yourself in a position where you cast your fantasy team aside. I don't think that's being true to yourself, SK. We love fantasy. That's why we're here. You've got to keep playing fantasy, but really engage in watching the football. Go out maybe more to watch the matches more if you're able. Meet friends to watch the matches. And what I find is a real relief when you're having a bad game week is you're at the bar with a friend who also is experiencing the same misery, and
Mhm.
that makes it a lot easier to laugh about it.
Yeah, I think that's
So I
right.
think
I
being
think Yeah, game week 38 can be. I said I wouldn't talk, but now you've said your piece, and I
Yeah,
will.
yeah, I'm good. I
But
cleared the lane. Yep.
yeah, game week 38 can be a little tricky. Everyone who saw me for game week 38 last year knows it was a 2-hour heart attack for me. But I would say, yeah, I totally agree, and I think in general, it's like the FPL stuff can seem very serious and aggravating. But if it's like March and you're at the bar and you and your friends are talking fantasy, it all just feels like a laugh, right? It's just like it does not seem like a big deal, and it's like, and in fact, often what ends up happening is you talk to somebody who it is a genuinely not big deal, as opposed to like us pretending it's not a big deal, right?
And then
and it kind of
you start asking
shames
the real
you.
questions.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of shames you into realizing you're taking this too seriously, right? And so that's always a useful thing as well. So I think you're right. Getting out there is a good answer. All right, well, that's your pod. Good luck to everybody, whether you're free hitting or whether you're just trying to get there with transfers for game week 29. I think it's going to be a fun game week just because it's different. It's something, and at least it's spaced out over a couple days. So we have matches on Saturday and Sunday. So thanks again for all of our Patreon supporters. If you want to support the pod, we really genuinely love it and appreciate it. You can go to patreon.com/alwayscheating to do that. Brendan, do you want to thank our producer patrons?
Yeah, let me hand out the little gold men to all of these fine people: Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, Alberti Chris Howell, Bob Schoon, James Holland, Dave Wagner Lodahl, Nick Wright, Lazarus Llanos, Jesse Halstead, Bruce Kerr, Brian Schindler, Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock at FPL Merch, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, Buffalo Wildmings, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Caleb Robbie, Volgar Paulson Kruger, Alex Holcomb, James Keatley, The Saint, Bob Fox, Craig Jackson, Shalin F. Kadakia, Terrence O'Donnell, Heath Cram, Thomas Dislov, Noah and Louise, Travis Grant, Linus Vennerstrom, Dan Parsons, James C., Matthew Skinner, Fro Jacobson, Brennan, Daniel Hart, Lolly, Ben Coombs, Eric Kite, Gareth H., Rune Sandberg, and the winner for Best Producer for 1 week only is Brian Clark, who will win next week. Stay tuned to find
Clarky.
out.
I like it.
Rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And as a reminder, you can stream video of this episode you just listened to on YouTube. So you can see Josh's free hit draft for today, our game week 28 score so far, and our beautiful shining faces. Follow us wherever you get social media. Email us, hailcheaters@gmail.com for all this information and more. Alwayscheating.com. Josh, any final words as we leap into the week?
No, I have no final words. Except again, yeah, have at least one player in your game week 29 squad that most people won't have. I think it's a fun week for it. Carve it out for yourself. It'll make the game week more fun.
Beautiful. All right, signing off. I hope everyone scores more points for the remainder of game week 28, and we'll see our Patreon supporters Thursday night for our game week 29 deadline pod.
All right, talk to you soon. Bye.